North Korea is among the most isolated and sanctioned countries on the planet, yet it still somehow has enough cash and technical know-how to develop both nuclear bombs and missiles capable of threatening much of the Eastern Pacific and, someday, the United States and beyond. How is this possible? The answer is China. In this video, Defense Updates examines why and how China helped North Korea in developing its nuclear arsenal. This video has 5 points. First one looks at the why part, and next 4 looks at the how part. Let's get started.
Number 5.
China has supported and reinforced North Korea military mainly because of 3 factors. 1. Shield to Japan. North Korea has been publicly against Japan. China and Japan have been rivals, having territorial disputes. China sees North as a strategic leverage against Japan. 2. Shield to the US. Almost all analysts will agree that should the war start in the Korean Peninsula, South Korea, with the support of the US, is bound to win. If this were the case, the US military will have access to the entire peninsula and can drive its troops all the way to the Chinese borders. This is perhaps the biggest reason why China doesn't want Korea to unite and keeps helping North to have a buffer against the US. 3. Refugees from North Korea. If the war occurs between North and South Korea, millions of North Korean refugees will flee across the border to northeastern China. This will cause great social disruptions to China, and China definitely does not want it to happen. China believes its best interest is served by keeping North and South Korea unstable enough that they cannot cooperate fully, but stable enough so that a war doesn't happen. In the next 4 points, we find out how China has helped North Korean nuclear program.
Number 4.
The regime of Kim Jong Un continues doing $5.3 billion in business each year, 85% of its trade with China. China provides North Korea with most of its food and energy supplies. Conversely, China's purchases from its neighbor includes minerals, seafood, and manufactured garments. Nicholas Eberstadt, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, had written, "China is currently North Korea's only economic backer of any importance. The trade has kept North Korea's military going." North Korea's economic clout is small. South Korea's central bank estimates its neighbors had a gross national income of just about 2.2% that of South Korea. The dictator doesn't really put much of the money into the safety, health, and education of his people. North Korea spends an estimated 25% of its gross domestic product on weapons. So a lot of cash from trade with China fuels the regime's nuclear and missile program.
Number 3.
The USA has long accused China of aggressive espionage. Officials and organizations have traced various attacks on corporations and government computer systems in the US to computers in China. As per assessments, China has transferred some of its technical knowledge and key cyber assets to North Korea. North Korea was reportedly behind an $81 million cyber theft of funds from Bangladesh's account at the New York Federal Reserve last year. Prosecutors believe Chinese middlemen helped North Korea with the theft. Some Chinese financial firms also appear to serve as channels for funds to North Korea. In February, 6 U.S. senators, including former presidential candidates Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, sent a letter to U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin that urged him to restrict North Korean banks' access to Chinese banks.
Number 2.
Pyongyang revealed a mock-up of its KN-08 or Hwasong-13 ICBM during a military parade in 2012. 6 of these mock-ups, however, were being carried by 6 very real and purpose-designed 16-wheel missile transporter erector launchers made by the Sanjiang Special Vehicle Corp of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corp. In order to design this launcher, Chinese engineers would have required extensive knowledge of the liquid-fueled KN-08 missile, perhaps having even aiding in its development. On September 9th of 2016, Pyongyang tested a 20 to 30 kiloton nuclear weapon, perhaps suitable for a warhead, and some estimate it could have 100 nuclear weapons by 2020. But it's China's launchers, perhaps up to 8 of them according to Japanese reports, that will give North Korea's ICBMs the mobility they need to conduct surprise nuclear strikes against the United States. China also provided North Korea its DF-23 project designs from the early 1980s, which is liquid-fueled, road-mobile ICBM. Apart from that, China has also sold North Korea a new precision-guided rocket artillery system and very likely a new 4th-generation anti-aircraft missile called KN-06. The Washington Post revealed in April that North Korean missiles were built with components brought into the country via China. For instance, an Institute for Science and International Security report revealed that Shenyang Machine Tools Company in northeastern China sent banned products to North Korea.
Number 1.
While China claims that it fully implements UN sanctions against North Korea, one Chinese state-owned company maintained a joint venture with a sanctioned North Korean company for nearly a decade, reported the Wall Street Journal. China's Limat Corp and North Korea's Ryonbong General Corp established a joint venture in 2008 to mine tantalum, niobium, and zirconium, materials that can be used in nuclear reactors and missile technology. The U.S. sanctioned Ryonbong for its involvement in the production of weapons of mass destruction in 2005, and the UN followed suit in 2009. It's estimated 600 Chinese companies are engaged in trade with North Korea, and while much of that trade is likely legal, some may be in violation of international sanctions. Through its connections in China, the regime has managed to get its hands on technological components essential for weaponry.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting. Kindly provide your feedback in the comment section. This will help us improve.